B-52 Stratofortress, heavyweight champion of the American Air Fleet. The 8-engine bomber made its first flight when Harry Truman was president. The military took delivery in the mid-50s, and the nuclear-capable B-52 has been vital to America's strategic readiness ever since. It's a rare opportunity for a journalist like me to ride along on a B-52 training mission. The preparations for the flight were pretty intense. You'll see why. Considering how physically demanding it is just to be a passenger in a B-52. For years, I worked undercover against Russian military intelligence, something most thought had ended with the collapse of the Soviet Union. But if you thought the B-52 was a relic of the Cold War, you'd be wrong. It's as relevant to national security as it ever was. Getting to a 60-year-old aircraft that's critical to national security starts here, on a bus. After mission briefing, the crew and I load up and head out to the field.
I think the anticipation for this has just been really drawn out. It's been 5 days of everyone telling me a different thing to expect, so.
The crew on a B-52 consists of pilots, electronic warfare officers, and weapons systems officers, or WISOs. Such a large aircraft, yet the tightest entrance in cramped quarters.
A New York City apartment, except smaller.
Pilot's ready. Pilot's ready. Let's go.
This variant is the B-52H. Introduced in 1961, it was the first B-52 with fan-jet engines, and the only variant still in service today. Even as the most modern version, the B-52H is more than 60 years old, and sometimes it shows its age.
We are clear for takeoff.
As a spectator, a B-52 taking off is a moment you never forget. It's even more thrilling as a passenger.
Brakes applied. Here. Captain.
The acceleration, a climb that lifts off the ground smoothly. It's very different from a passenger jet that rotates dramatically. In the cockpit, the pilots have to work the controls to keep level. A fully loaded B-52 can weigh up to 500,000 pounds. That's like New York's Times Square shuttle trains taking off during rush hour. This is a story about how the cutting edge and the traditional connect in the U.S. military, and about the men and women who serve in a changing world, and to tell that story in 36 hours. Located outside of Shreveport, Louisiana, Barksdale Air Force Base has existed nearly as long as bombing itself. It's where some of the very first military bombers flew a century ago. Named in honor of 2nd Lieutenant Eugene Barksdale, a World War I flyer and test pilot, Barksdale is now one of the most vital locations for the U.S. military's deterrent force. A show of power designed to end a battle or a war before it begins.
Every single time we go out there, we have to train as though we are fighting in the same exact way. But every time an aircrew steps into mission plan, steps in to get their gear on, and steps out to this aircraft for a training mission, that is an actual strategic deterrent because our adversaries are watching.
Even to fly in a B-52 as a passenger takes specialized training. For someone used to flying coach, the possibility of being ejected from a plane is a terrifying prospect. But here, it's something we need to prepare for. The B-52 has 2 levels. The top level for the pilots and electronic warfare officers. The bottom level for the weapons systems officers. In case of an emergency, top crew are ejected upwards, just like on a fighter jet. The crew down below get ejected downwards. I have to train for both positions.
Did I pass?
You did. You're right for flight.
Like barely, or no? You're going to do great.
Considering the B-52 was introduced in the 50s, training these days is far more advanced. Like this, virtual reality headsets that replicate a parachute jump.
Right.
Every B-52 mission requires specialized gear for any contingency.
This is the helmet and mask assembly.
Okay.
Each helmet and mask is custom fit to an aircrew, and then they're assigned that custom fit the rest of their Air Force career. We have the helmet, it's for protection and communication. We have the mask, it's for communication and breathing. And the helmet comes in 3 sizes, and the mask comes in 5.
And why is it important? I mean, we think about a bomber, we think about, a lot of people might think of it as an airliner. You don't fly with an oxygen mask or a helmet in an airliner. Why is this important? And why is it important that it fits so snugly to the aircrew?
You're in the critical phases of flight, takeoff, landing, and refueling. They need the mask. When they fly, it's a pressurized cabin while they're up, so when they're in the air, they can walk around without the mask, but when they take off and land, they need it.
What is this?
So this is their anti-exploder suit.
Okay.
It comes fitted to each aircrew member individually. It's used when they're flying over water, when the water is under 6 degrees Fahrenheit. It provides a watertight seal, so it decreases chance of hypothermia, so they can get in their life raft when they eject safely and alive.
Every crew member on the jet has to wear a parachute. Not at all times, but during critical phases of flight, so takeoff, landing, air refueling. The life preserver is only over water, but the parachute is always 24/7 on the jet. So this is our survival vest. It's custom fit to every aircrew member. They all have their own in their locker. That's the one they'll always use when they need it. It has about 30 different components inside. So you got 2 pockets on the outside, and then on the inside, you have 4 different pockets, just in case they go down in water. Everything has a lanyard attached to the vest.
Got it. One of the things I've heard consistently is the unspoken rule about the B-52 is you do not poop on the jet. We joke about it, but this is important for mission endurance.
The B-52 can stay up in the air for up to 72 hours as long as they have refueling. So they have to have options. We will start off with the easy stuff. For females, we have what's called the freshet, basically just a funnel. For men and female, we have what's called the piddle packs. It's just a bag, CSKs. The easiest way to describe it, a diaper vacuum. Once it senses liquid, it'll turn on and just suck everything out into a container attached to your leg.
It all sounds horrible. I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every B-52 flight takes tons of preparations. Mission briefings for the crew, as well as a drag chute fitted for the aircraft. The drag chute is crucial to help slow down the massive B-52, even on the longest runways.
So a drag chute is just a parachute that is deployed for slowing the aircraft down when it comes to landing. The weight and the way the brakes are, it needs a little bit of assistance to get it slowed down.
When it fully is extended, how big is the parachute?
90 feet.
90 feet long.
And then when the canopy itself opens up, it's 44 feet in diameter.
A 44-foot canopy held together by 90 feet of nylon is going to slow a B-52.
So each one of these lines is actually has potential strength of 4,000 pounds.
Wow.
And there's 48 of them.
And this is a piece of the kit of the B-52 that's been in existence since the B-52 has been flying.
They will be using drag chutes as long as it's flying. And then, yeah, when you get to American ingenuity right there, baby.
There's no getting around it. The whole reason the B-52 exists is to drop bombs on targets. Loading bombs onto any jet is a complex and detailed task.
It's outside. Got you.
Each B-52 requires a team just to load ordnance. The B-52 can carry up to 60,000 pounds of bombs.
For a weapons load team, it's definitely every person knows the job that they have to perform. Not only do they know to perform that job, but when you load with someone long enough, you learn their do's, their don'ts. Me and Sergeant Lowe have been loading together for a while, and I know when he needs my help, he knows when I need his help, and sometimes it doesn't even need to be discussed. We see each other, we see where we pick it right back up.
Awesome.
And then there are the key members that get the aircraft off the ground safely, the maintenance teams.
So here in the 2nd Maintenance Squadron, we are huge on preventative maintenance. Typically, aircraft fly, they go on their mission. During that mission, things break, right? These are large aircraft, thousands of components, thousands of miles of wiring, fuel, you name it. These things break, they happen. When they come down, our maintainers on the flight line are only able to address that initial issue, that primary need to get that jet back serviceable. However, sometimes when they're up there may be other things that at the moment just can't take care of that are minor. This is totally us taking this aircraft, tearing it down, digging and finding those things, Easter eggs, finding those time bombs, defusing them, putting the jet back together and getting it back into service. This is Jiffy Lube on steroids.
Once the B-52 is designated for a flight, the crew boards, gets ready, and then a ballet of people, including both civilian and military air traffic controllers, work to get it off the ground. And then we are in the air. For such a large jet, the quarters of a B-52 are confined. At the top, the cockpit for pilots and a classified space for electronic warfare officers we couldn't show. And then, down a skinny ladder, the Wizzo. With extensive training in operating weapon systems, the Wizzo is responsible for all the weapons on the aircraft, in training and in combat. Simulating a combat scenario, right down to pushing the launch button, is how B-52 crews build muscle memory for the real thing. While we're in the air, a malfunction.
Basically, they got some maintenance issues going on.
The temperature in the cabin spikes. Metal surfaces become hot to the touch.
Yeah, so that temperature controls is stuck.
It's about as physically uncomfortable as I've ever been.
I'm assuming this is hot. It's really uncomfortable.
As the crew works to find a solution, people and equipment are overheating. Even the cameras can't handle the heat, and they stop working altogether. Despite the malfunction, the B-52 mission must go on. Our next objective is air-to-air refueling. A rendezvous with a KC-135 tanker. This is one of those moments where tensions run high inside the aircraft. Since this is a critical phase of flight, we put on our oxygen masks. The jets take part in a delicate dance, as the B-52 takes on fuel at a rate of 7,000 pounds per minute. It gets heavier, and pilots have to add power. As the tanker gets lighter, they have to reduce power. It's one of the most dangerous parts of the job. But in a plane that burns 3,300 gallons of fuel an hour, refueling is vital to the mission. And then, after nearly 7 hours on board, we land safely at Barksdale. The yellow drag chute unfurling behind the B-52's giant tail. My 36 hours with the B-52 crews at Barksdale Air Force Base come to an end. It might seem strange, the idea that young military members are serving a vital national security mission on a jet as old as their parents, and someday their grandparents. But as we've seen before, getting the job done takes an approach that can be somewhat unconventional.